day you're gonna get a letter, a cease and desist letter.
Cease and desist. Who produced that movie? I can't even remember. It's gonna
Man,
kill us
so
now.
long
I
ago
tell
I
you what,
can't remember.
I'm gonna look that up. And while I'm looking that up, David, it's a scorcher out here, huh?
Shoot, man, it has been so miserable. We caught a break yesterday because the humidity wasn't as high,
Yeah,
so it
so
was
down
hot.
then.
Yeah, it was hot, but humidity wasn't as bad. So really, in the evening when you went outside, it's like, hey, I could actually maybe sit out here.
Maybe sit outside and enjoy a little bit. You know, the thing is, and I'm not that bougie. I do have a pool, but the pool sometimes gets a bit too hot to even enjoy it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's like this water. So I got one of those things like you plug into the outlet, right, where the water comes back in the pool, and it's got this like fountain thing on it, right? My wife buys this, and I thought, I mean, I guess the air will cool it off a little bit, but not that
Mm-hmm.
much. I
Yeah,
was very surprised.
so it did work.
Several degrees colder. Like it was noticeably better. Like, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I was very shocked because all it does is shoot the water up into the air and it comes back down. But that cooled the pool off significantly.
I always wondered if there was a way. I'm not a pool guy. We have a hot tub, and
I can
I always
imagine
wondered
Dave, cigar in one hand, unnamed
drinking. Yeah,
alcohol
yeah,
beverage in
yeah,
the other.
yeah. Sitting around having a little hot tub time. But I always did wonder if there was a way to cool down a pool like that, because I know the pool they can get 90 degrees pretty easy, especially around here.
Yeah, I live in Louisville, Kentucky, and we've got plenty of warm weather coming our way. Speaking of being in the heat, you know who's in the hot seat right now? California has said, hey, you
Mm,
know those AI enabled big trucks, those over the road semis? We're not so sure about those. We're going to pump the brakes on that for now. They've introduced a bill that would restrict a company's ability to actually use those. Bad news for some folks because these trucks are already on California roads. Prior to this legislation, there was no such legislation. That doesn't say you can't have them at all, but you do have to pass through stringent government restrictions and red tapes, as we all know. Got to do the dance. So it seems to me like California's okay with driverless cars, but not trucks.
yeah, and I don't know how I feel about that because, I mean, half of me says a driverless truck seems extremely dangerous, and I'm guessing that's what they were going for. Is hey, we don't feel confident in the technology, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'd want to know is what was kind of if you think about the entire process of the driverless truck, I'm assuming that it had everything to do with the inability to find enough people to get product from A to B, because that's been some of the issue, I believe, is the shortage of drivers and
That's exactly
just
right.
having enough, right? And that was the way to overcome that, because you can't take it by train. You can't. There's just different ways you can't do it, and that was the only way to overcome that. Now they don't want it, and I don't know if it's safety versus value. I mean, that's always weird.
That's
In
true.
everything we deal with, that's always the cost, right?
I believe absolutely. It's the cost of doing business. So it does make you wonder what they're going for. Now, when you look at the main cause of self-driving car accidents are rear end collisions.
Right.
So and not to say that that's happened in the semi truck driverless business yet. I don't believe it has because that's so much money's going into that. But we'd have to look at that further. But I know that out of the 400 reported in 2022, an overwhelming percentage of that was a car company that starts with a T that's going to go unnamed because we don't want to get
Mm-hmm.
sued, and they're known
Mm-hmm.
to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like, hey guys, that autopilot feature and these other things, we might need to flesh that out a little bit further. And I think in my opinion, the trucking industry is the place to develop that technology better because the amount of money that
Yep.
logistics will spend on it.
Yep. I totally agree. And if they could somehow come up with a way to do it where maybe they have their own lane, or maybe it's only in certain areas that I don't know. That's just such a tough. My mind starts to go to,
Yeah,
well, then do you get into flying it then? Do you do like a low altitude flights and they stay off the road, but yet it's controlled, but then you have a different safety concern? I don't know. I mean, that is such a weird, there has
imagine
to be
the
a reason
future of
around it.
that. One day there's going to be above your head just like little freight drones zoom, zoom,
Mm-hmm.
just zipping along that would eliminate all the congestion or some of the congestion on the roads. Not that I want to get rid of truck drivers. Obviously, we need truck drivers. But to
Oh,
your
absolutely.
point, there's a massive shortage. It was like
Yeah.
55,000 truck drivers that are needed right now today,
Yeah.
and that will only keep up with today's demand,
Yeah.
not the growth. It's like,
Yep.
what do you do?
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
do?
Absolutely. I'd love to see more about what drove that decision to really understand if you followed it all in, which we all know it comes down to money, but
Always.
whose side of the money is it on, and what did it benefit them to say no over allowing it? And if it truly was safety, kudos to them. But I bet you there was some more stuff there that went on to make that decision.
Always. Always is. And speaking of more stuff going on, I think there's a lot more happening in the world today of commerce. I think, what was it? You and I were talking about something yesterday. What was that?
Well, we talked about what the UPS strike, and then we talked about
UPS strike.
yep, we talked about your site that you like. Is it Temu?
Oh,
Right?
that's right. More
By the
hot
way, I
seat.
did go there. I did go
Did
there.
you?
I went there, looked around. Yeah.
Temu has been just chunking away at Amazon lately. If you look at the price of goods, now, so here's the thing: Temu is effectively. Are you familiar with Alibaba? A lot of us are. Alibaba was traditionally a B2B place where I, as a business owner, would go and buy T-shirts and blanks and things like that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Temu is effectively saying, "Hey, we're opening this up to the larger consumer." And it is the same exact thing. It's from the factory direct. So, as an example, I looked at a garlic press, and on Amazon, the garlic press was $6.99 or $8.99, something like that. The exact same product from the exact same manufacturer on Temu was $1.99, free
Mm.
shipping. And they're
Wow.
doing this to get to honestly, it's curtailing Amazon
Yep.
because Amazon is you're buying it, you're importing it, you're doing it in bulk. There's more costs involved with that, so you're trying to recoup your costs. And Amazon has their own fee structure. A seller on Amazon's got a lot to juggle, so
Yep.
Temu is cutting all that out and going from factory to U.S. consumer direct,
I
and I
wonder
think it's a
how.
bad thing.
Well, yeah, and I wonder how people view the Amazon relationship. And by that I mean I'm going to go look at something. I did the same thing that, earlier this morning when I was looking on Temu and Amazon and just looking around at stuff since we had our conversation yesterday.
Yeah,
And I started looking and I thought, hey, there's actually some stuff I could use from there. But then my mind went to, well, I can go to Amazon and get it and have it tomorrow, as opposed to I'm not sure when I'm going to get it.
not sure at all when you're going to get it. And if you look at Amazon, amount of money spent on Amazon every year, it's in the billions, the 60 billions or more, or 600 billions or more. It's a ridiculous amount of money. The
Yeah.
thing I think that for me, why I say Temu is a bad thing for Americans is because it's going to remove that money from the American market and put it directly into the Chinese market.
Hmm.
So it is one way that China is attacking America in a
Yep.
way of economic depression, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. They just see, oh, this is a great deal. It is a great deal, but not for you.
Yeah.
It's bad in my opinion. You buy
It
from
will
Amazon,
be.
at least the dollars are staying in America for the most part, not 100%.
Yeah. No, you're right. And it would be interesting to see how the impact of the purchase does when people look at it. Am I thinking about that? Am I thinking about shipping times? Can I wait 2 weeks for it? I, I don't know, but I can almost guarantee you that's what it's going to take to get there. Has to.
Yeah, yeah, because it is coming from China.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've got to be willing to wait. Now, to your point, can I wait? Is $5 worth the wait? Maybe. I will say not for me. I intentionally will buy stuff off Amazon and pay a little bit more to get the free shipping and overnight or next or same day or whatever.
You and a lot of other people will do that. So yeah, I was right. It was 700 over $700 billion
Wow.
spent on Amazon. This is 37.8% market share of all e-commerce sales. That's a significant amount of money that if
Yep.
you say, hey, Temu's going to kill Amazon, and let's say this money, this $700 billion is now going directly into the hands of Chinese manufacturers and the Chinese
Hmm.
government. It's taking all that economy out of America, which is a bad thing. Imagine the diversity that you're not going to have in the long run economic downturn that we would see if that in fact does happen. I, for one, hope it doesn't happen because I think that'd be
Yep.
awful.
Now, to combat that, what would be interesting is to see like an Amazon say, "Hey, we're going to get a made in America part," where you take the same products and you find a company who makes it in America and say, "Look, yeah, you can buy that and you can even buy it on Amazon, but here, these are certified made in America," because you will have a percentage of people that will just buy that
Yeah.
and pay a little
Yeah,
bit
you will.
extra to say, you know what, I'm just going to buy that because of what you just said. They're smart enough to understand the economics of what Temu
Absolutely. And I'm not necessarily one of those ones, to your point, and shout out to those who are, it's totally fine. I'm not one of those ones who will only buy made in America,
right.
but I prefer to buy from an American distributor. So they've spent the money to bring the product over here and they've done their markup because they need to make a profit too, right? So
Yep.
at least in some degree, yeah, we're supporting the Chinese manufacturing in the way that we're buying their goods, bringing them here, but the distributor I'm purchasing from is in America, thus keeping the dollars in America, supporting
Yep.
our economy. It is a
Yep.
dangerous thing, these apps, because now there's not one, but you got TikTok also doing their
Yep.
e-commerce thing. It is
Yep.
not going well for TikTok. We covered that last week. So shout out to our new episode on Apple Podcasts, How Publicity Affects Buyers. Bad
Hmm.
news for TikTok.
Yeah. Well, and that right there shows you. I think really what we're dealing with here is, will people change their buying habits to something unknown? Now, there's a percentage that are uneducated, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm saying that they just don't care. I want the cheapest price.
Yep.
I don't care if it was made by a newborn baby in a factory. If it's the cheapest price I can get, I want it. No
Yep.
problem.
No,
Let's
you're
go.
right.
It's out there. It's out there. And that percentage will follow all of these new trends to buy what they want. And that's, hey, that, and people know that. I think retailers know that. I think they're the same people that don't go to the mall because it's too expensive. I mean, let's just face it.
You're absolutely
There's a
right.
demographic for that. So
Absolutely. What extreme couponers? We've all seen them.
yes, yep, they're out there, and companies do that all the time. And you know, for example, when I just did a huge project, an automotive project, and during that I had to purchase things that I could have bought from China. I could have bought the foreign made products, but I did not. I've spent I probably spent double the money for the American made version. But man, I know it's going to be right, and they're 100% backed, and I know exactly where they're made. And if I call for support, I get people. I mean, the
That's
experience.
the thing, the
Yes, it cost
support,
me a
right?
lot
Yeah.
more, right? But it was worth it, I think.
Yeah, that's a lot of folks will do that. Well, take as an example, software as a service, right? Dave and I both work in SaaS, and it's a question that comes up almost every single time. Where is your support?
Yep.
Is it in the States? Is it overseas? Because people want local support. It's not
Yep.
because they're foreigners, it's
Nope.
because it's local support. So if I
That's
need
right.
help troubleshooting, I can call in my time zone. I can call and
Yep.
get somebody on the phone. That's sometimes okay when you've got overseas support and it's 24/7 and it's a technical product or something like that. There are different people who maybe have built that product that will know better and can support you better. So consider that in your decision making. But to your point, David, that we get that question all the time.
Yep. Yeah. It's all about the feel good of it too.
Yeah.
Again, some people are okay with it. Some people aren't. Some people, are worried about the time differences and can they reach them, and to any of that you just say do your research and figure out what works best for you.
Absolutely. And what's working best for all of us, and hopefully by now there isn't one happening, but UPS strike has been looming. I saw where the Teamsters president actually, I don't even know if he directly made comment to the White House. If he's got someone there, maybe he knows Joe B personally, but he's like, hey, when we strike, which I thought was an interesting word,
Yep.
don't get involved. Stay out of it. Even though this is going to impact the economy pretty significantly.
Yep. Yeah, I watched a video yesterday that a friend of mine posted who works at UPS, and they were practicing the strike.
Yeah.
And I don't know where this was necessarily, but and I haven't dug way down into the details about the reasoning obviously is money and contracts and things like that. I get it. Again, I don't work there, so I don't know specifically, hey, we want X amount more per hour. We need better working conditions. Which I think it's all of that, to be honest with you. I've just heard bits and pieces, and I've been piecing it together. And I read what I read in the news too. But yeah, you're right. I think it's imminent that it's going to happen. And I think it'll be a huge impact. I'm more careful right now how I ship stuff, to be honest with you.
And not that we're saying don't use UPS by any means. No. We love them, but I have to admit, knowing what I know, I've got the option. USPS, UPS, USPS a little bit slower, but there's not a strike looming, so it's not that I'm saying don't use them, but I would be careful like you. I'm leery of it.
I'll tell you what, I ordered something on eBay last week, and which I don't do often. I usually will always let me tell you my buying. Here's the kind of buying.
All right, here we go.
I needed a product. I immediately search Google typically, and then if Amazon pops up, that's my first choice, and I'll buy it at Amazon. And I don't necessarily even price shop it unless I feel like it's out of the realm of what it should cost, which you could argue and say, well, how do you know? It's like, well, I just know what I'd be willing to pay for it. But in this instance, I couldn't find
the value buyer.
Isn't that funny? I'm telling you, it's like, what was I willing? What did I feel like it was fair without knowing anything about the product? I mean, I know about the product, but I don't know, what's it worth?
Right. Yeah.
Well, then I realized I couldn't find exactly what I wanted. I could have got something similar, but then somebody on eBay had it, and they custom make it for me. It's a hose, but and I ordered it, which I don't do very often off of eBay. And it's interesting that it shipped from California, and it shipped USPS, and man, it got here fast.
Wow.
I was just like, what? I was trying to plan when I was going to put it on and do all this stuff. The next thing I know, it's like, hey, your package delivered. I'm like, well, that wasn't supposed to happen for another couple of days. And so I was pleasantly surprised. So I only say that I don't know what's changed, but that would change my buying habits if I knew I could get stuff off of eBay faster.
Absolutely.
Reliably faster.
Reliably faster is the thing. And eBay was, for the longest time, everybody's go-to place. They really missed the mark when it comes to shipping option, making the site more usable.
Yeah.
What was that? Bidding system is really cool on some things, but a direct purchase option was sort of baked in, it seems like, haphazardly toward the end, and then Amazon swept them and took them, and that was that.
Yep.
But I will shop on eBay, gosh, man, not that often. I'll say for certain things, if it's like something that's very expensive, right?
Yep.
Maybe like a new subwoofer, speakers, or something for the surround sound in the house.
Sure.
Maybe I'll go on there and search. Or shelves and things like that. If you want some shelving, you can get some really nice shelving for wicked cheap on eBay, because people are just selling crap they don't want anymore, and I can paint it and woodwork it and make it look better or whatever. But yeah, it's like eBay's become this sort of, it's still a big marketplace, but it's kind of niche. It almost doesn't, I don't want to call it tchotchke, but it almost feels like that's what I only go there for.
Yeah, and really, this day and age, I feel that eBay is kind of I need something out of the ordinary, and therefore I'm going to go search eBay because someone probably has listed it.
Yeah.
Where I'm not going to find it anywhere else. Like the part that I bought. I mean, I think it should have been everywhere, but
One of
No one
these
has, but
days, the car is going to get done, and we're going to do like a live show from your garage.
we may have to. Well, what's interesting too is what I was doing was something very specific. I was trying to keep a color scheme going, which gets so
Mm,
detailed that it's hard to, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I need this, but it has to be this color in this part. Well, that's very specific, but somebody had it. They happened to just be on eBay and not on Amazon,
yeah,
which I would have bought it on Amazon. So it is interesting, the buying habits. There is one more I'll throw at you too, that's just which is really fascinating, that I just realized that I do this and I don't even pay attention to it. So going back to the China statement of, how you have like your Harbor Freights, right? You have a Harbor Freight near you?
yep, yep, yep.
Okay, so I'm cautious what I buy there, but they've done a really good job of getting better quality, and I'm not as scared to buy certain things as I would. Plus, I'm not a professional when it comes to be a mechanic or whatever. But what's interesting is a lot of times, and I did this even early this morning when I was looking at certain things on Temu and all that. I'll give you the example. I was looking at heat shrink tubing. You know what that is? Where you
Right.
put on a
Yep.
wire and you heat shrink.
Yep.
So Temu had it cheap. We're talking $1.50. I don't know. It was real cheap for exactly what I needed. Amazon had it for like $6. But
Mm.
in my mind, I'm like, you know what? This evening, I could run over to Harbor Freight, pick it up, and have it in my hand for probably somewhere in between there.
Yeah. Yeah. $3, $4
That's what I'll
probably.
end up doing, I bet.
That's the thing. Like all these apps and everything, it's really changing the buyer behavior where we just don't get out anymore. People
Mm-mm,
aren't going and shopping as much as they
mm-mm.
used to for things like
No.
that. My rule with Harbor Freight is if I'm going to use it a bunch, like if it's a saw that I'm going to, redo my whole deck with, I'm probably going to buy it new. But if it's something I'm only going to use a couple of times and I don't really care,
Mm-hmm,
like hey, it's a belt sander and I need it for one project, I'll go to Harbor Freight. That's kind of
mm-hmm.
that's where I lay in the
Yeah,
Harbor Freight rule.
yeah, that's usually a pretty good one.
I
But
kind of
that's what
find
I'll do, though.
myself planning projects around when I'll get stuff though. Now that I really think about it, it's like sometimes I'll order it and just, hey, if it gets in, it gets in. But that also speaks to my ability to procrastinate as much as possible.
Well, well, yes. And then the other thing that comes into play with all this is it's shipping times and it's shipping costs. Because some
Hmm.
companies still charge a minimum. Hey, you got to spend $120 to get free
Yeah.
shipping. And I intentionally, I think I've talked about this before, I will buy stuff off Amazon and pay a little more to get the free shipping, and the return option
Return
is
option
easier.
makes it easy. Yeah. You know what I notice about free shipping is, man, that number keeps jumping. It's like
Does.
$25 free shipping, $50, that's $100 free shipping. That number is only climbing, and with this strike, it's going to continue. I think to just get
Yeah,
worse and worse. Like
it really
$300
will.
free shipping. What's the point?
Yeah,
What's the point?
$500 free shipping. It's like, thanks a lot.
Right?
Ordered
Spend
a
1,000.
But then you get stuff that seems ridiculous. Like they ordered like a mini split system from my garage, so like an AC that you put in your
Yeah.
garage. I finally going to break down and put one in there, and I ordered it on HomeDepot.com, and then they charged me $55 to ship it via like a courier or a it was like AAA Cooper, which is one of the
Sure. Yeah. 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 A local
yeah
regional carrier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
regional. But I thought that was interesting. I'm like, so I spent that kind of money, but you're gonna throw a $55 charge on top of that? It's almost like, why not just include it somehow where I
It's
didn't
like,
feel
come
like you
on,
just gouged me
guys.
$55? Doesn't even seem
Come
like it's
on.
enough.
Like, you are not covering that for $55. What are y'all
I
doing?
just don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. But I think we're right though. To summarize that, in the coming weeks, whenever the strike, if it happens, which I hope it doesn't, but I'm a consumer, so
Fingers
I'm being
crossed.
selfish,
Fingers crossed.
that it will affect, man, it's going to affect everybody, and we don't realize the impact. It's going to slow everything down. It's going to create, who knows? And then think about it, if FedEx decided, hey, that's a good idea, you know, maybe part of them could strike. I don't know which parts of them can and can't, but
Well, we've
I,
already avoided the pilot union strike is not happening. What they did for a
right,
couple of days, but then it was over before you knew it.
yeah,
So that's already been avoided. And so far as I know, there aren't any strikes planned on the FedEx side of things anymore. But Yeah, I mean, you're right. We could see a time where they get kind of, hey, you're striking and we're striking, and we're really going to hold the, the people's feet to the fire. But ultimately, it bleeds down to you and me, the consumer, right? Like they say, I've already read it, where it's like, hey, UPS is going to have a hard time passing this rate increase off to, its customers. But is that true? I don't think so. I think it's not hard for them to pass that rate increase. If they
Yeah,
bend to the will of the union, there's
yeah,
going to be a rate increase.
yeah. And what are we going to do about it? Nothing. I mean,
Nothing.
I don't understand why they think that's a big deal. It's like if McDonald's increased the price of food, I hate to tell you, 90% of the people that go to McDonald's are still going to pay it.
Still going to go there. That's right. You're talking about pennies too, so it will have an effect on us, the consumer. But that's how it goes. We always float the bill. The consumer floats the bill. Always.
Yep.
They're not paying for it. As a business owner, I didn't pay for anything. The consumer paid for it all.
Yeah, exactly. Now, keep in mind, too, that there's different ways of throwing an increase into the marketplace. Let's take food, for example. Sometimes food manufacturers will take and say, hey, we're going to produce this jar of peanut butter. We're just going to make it a little smaller, but sell it at the same price, where the consumer thinks they're getting the same price, but they're really not.
It's a different product.
Is a price increase. So do they just not offer the speed of service that they were for the same amount of money? And maybe
that could be it. Like, hey, you want this service, it's this price. If you want the standard, it's the regular price. It'd be better if they just blended that cost over all their services and made it simple, which is probably what they'll end up doing. But that rate increase is going to happen no matter what. If this whole thing holds out, and it usually does. If the union strikes, it'll go on for weeks, and then that'll be that.
Some sort of agreement.
Yeah, and it's awful because nobody really wins in the end. It's tough on the union folks to do this. It's tough on us, the consumers. It's tough on everybody all around. But you know what's not tough is tuning in to Intangible Commerce on Apple Podcasts.
Man, we're there. How exciting.
Whoa.
I'm so glad Apple called us and asked us to be on the Apple Podcast.
They said, we want you. Didn't have to pay for it or anything.
You could have called. We would have answered.
I would have picked up that phone call. That bombshell. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to this Intangible Commerce. We're up to 40 unique viewers and listeners across all of our platforms. We love every single one of you, and thank you so much for the support. And
yes,
on that note, we will see you next time. Send them away, Dave.
Commerce away. Goodbye, e-commerce.
Hey, you can't do that.